2, and then I believe we are
Refreshing
live.
page.
This should be it. And then Justin, I'll go ahead and send you the how to the manage on second device. There you go. That's in the chat of the thing of this room. There you go. Okay, cool. That's you should now be able to go and pay attention to comments and things like that. So hello everybody. Welcome, and I apologize. We're super late. So we're supposed to be doing these on the second and the fourth Thursday of every month. Yesterday, I was at a wedding, and I was watching one of my best buddies out here get married. He's the guitarist in like my first band out here in Arizona. So he got married, and we pushed this up to today. And then we're figuring out our production stuff. So me and Justin are on Discord on my other screen, and then now so he can hear me, you can hear him, and we're now live. So anyway, thank you for hanging out. I'm sure y'all are all waiting with bated breath, but this should be happening right at 4 o'clock Pacific on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and talk about why tags are not the way. Okay, so looking at a customer database in general, you need to be able to segment people, period. Customers, there's prospects, and here's people from this, these kinds of customers, these kinds of prospects, whatever the case is. Historically, the way that people have done things, because it used to be the only way to do it, was through tagging. Now, this idea of tagging exists in pretty much every major CRM. And as the name lends, you're basically just like, you know, putting a sticker or like sticking a pin on somebody. And then at any point in time, you can say, oh, hey, go find people with these particular tags, right? Um, there's actually two really big reasons you do not want to use a tag as your default go-to. Which again, 20 years ago, yes, you had to tag absolutely everything. That was the only way to roll. It's different now. Okay. So here's something operationally that's very important for you to understand. So under the hood, we all know that any kind of a CRM is a database, right? And the way that it works is for every tag that somebody has, that's an entry in a database table. So if I have a contact with 10 tags on it, that's 10 entries into the database. Well, guess what? When that database starts to hit a couple of million, which is very easy to do, it's literally going to slow down the database. It's going to slow down the CRM. It's just like if you have a car where like the fuel line is gunked up or something like that. Like it's literally going to like impact the thing. So that's one reason why you don't want to use way too many tags. There's a lot of ways to do tags and different philosophies and things like that. But what we're going to learn in this geez, what we're going to learn about on this mastermind is that, thank you, Justin. We're going to learn about you don't need to tag absolutely everything if you know how to pull the data that you're trying to pull. Okay, and most people they don't know how to use the built-in reporting. They don't know other ways to pull information into segments. So that's what we're going to go ahead and look at today. So, uh, and when we talk about segmentation, a tag is just one particular way to do it. There's many other ways to do it. So, like for example, um, if you wanted to pull a segment of your database with everybody that's from Florida or like Texas or California or something, you would not tag people with a tag, Florida, Texas. That's silly. That's a waste of resources. You would literally just search in the database who has Florida as their state, right? And that's the segment. Then you can do stuff with that. And then you can also use other related database tables. So if you wanted to search for a segment of people that have placed an order for a particular product, you would just search your orders for people that had a particular product. You do not need to tag that. Okay, and I think that's also the biggest takeaway I can give today is that tagging should be your absolute last resort. Now, there are legitimate use cases of when you should tag, um, but most people just do it as a crutch, and that's going to slow your database down. So don't do that. The other thing too is that it's also risking instability. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. So again, there's this giant database table with one tag, well, for each contact, every single tag, right? And so yes, you can create an automation that says when this tag is applied, start this automation, or when this tag is applied, begin this workflow, right? Really common thing. One at a time, or like from like, in a real time as this happens, okay, that's okay. And again, sometimes you need that. So like if you're using like Facebook lead ads and Zapier, you have to use a tag. There's just no way around it. Okay. But if you're using something like Make, you actually don't need to do that. But it's not stable. If I do a contact search for 1,000 people in my database and I say apply this tag, and this tag is connected to an automation or a workflow that when this tag is applied, then start this automation, people will slip through the cracks. Okay? Because what you're basically doing is it's automation or triggering an automation with extra steps that are not necessary. So a real goony example that I use is like, how do you touch your nose? You touch your nose. You can also wrap your head around, and touch your nose. Okay? Tagging to start an automation is doing this. You don't need to do that. You can literally just start an automation. So let's go ahead and talk about that. And then we're going to look at the campaign reporting part of it. And I feel like I'm ranting, Justin. So before we go ahead and hop into the tools of it, am I missing anything? I know we spoke a little bit about this topic before we got here, or is this making sense? Are there any questions you think that people might have?
I personally feel like this is kind of exactly what we discussed before, so it is making sense to me at least.
Okay, cool. So segmentation, right? It's just the ability to like pull a cluster of people out of your whole database. So a great example actually is this right here, like blog posts, right? Could you have a tag that says someone subscribed to your blog post, and every time you make a new blog post, you send a notification? Sure, you could totally do that. And you could absolutely search for people with that tag and then send a broadcast or add them and do an automation for that. But that again, that's not the only way to segment it. In fact, I would not recommend doing that because people have no preference. It's a very binary yes or no. Either you have the thing or you don't. What we do in our business, we have a blog post that's a custom field, and people can actually choose their preferences. Maybe people want to receive every single new blog post, or maybe they don't. Maybe they just want one email at the end of the month that says, here's everything that we released, right? Now, it does take a little more discipline, being a little more pro, to have this distinction here, because now you have to honor it, okay? Otherwise, you're disrespecting the relationship. If you make one blog post every single week, you better not email people on the monthly roundup every single time we release a blog post. But at the last blog post of the month, fourth week of the month, whatever, then you email them a separate communication that says, here's everything that you missed, okay? Which is a different email than, hey, here's the latest blog post, right? But again, that's a different way to segment. So let's go ahead and talk about automations here. And we'll pull up our sandbox. And so with that automation, it's usually like stimulus response. When this happens, then do this. Here's the trigger. Here's what needs to happen after the trigger has been pulled. So in those cases, you should just use the thing that's supposed to happen. So let's go, I don't know, what's a simple example? Let's use like a purchase, right? So like event purchased. So somebody bought a thing, okay? It's very common for people to have a tag. Somebody buys something, tag is event purchase, right? And then that goes and starts this automation. When they get tagged as event purchase, start whatever the automation goes, send a confirmation email, and count down to the event, whatever. Okay. This is the last. This is, in my opinion, the worst way to do it. You need to use the native trigger, the native goal, the native when that causes this. So in the case of an event purchase, you can actually use the product purchase, right? So buy event ticket. Now, from a customer experience standpoint, they're going to experience the same thing, but buying an event ticket versus somebody buying an event ticket and then you tag them as an event purchase, big waste of time. It's overloading your resources. You don't need to do this. And what happens when you're promoting? And let's say you're going live or you're sending an email and people are buying a lot of tickets all at once. This can fail. Okay? This is way more stable because it's based off the fact that an order was placed. Okay? Or let's look at another example of like a book launch, right? So here's a book wait list. I have a book coming out. Sign up for my wait list. I can, of course, have a tag. This is tag book wait list, which then adds people to here. But again, this can fail. You do not need to tag somebody to start this automation. In fact, you probably have a landing page. It's the book wait list landing page that you spell properly. There you go. If somebody fills out this landing page, just put them into the automation. Or what if you have like a WordPress website? And what if you have the whole thing built and you're just using a web form? Fine. You just have a web form, book wait list, WordPress, whatever. Again, these are the easiest ways to touch your nose. There's less chance of it failing. If you have some kind of integration or something that's tagging them on a book wait list, you might be forced to use a tag, but you should not. And again, this should be your absolute last ditch thing to do. You should look for every other possible reason to not tag people. And I know what I'm saying is probably controversial, and it might upset people, and I still don't care. Okay, let's look at the same idea of like an appointment booked. Fine. Somebody books an appointment, you send appointment reminders leading up to it. Fine. Now, let's talk about when you must use a tag. Maybe. Let's say you have something like Calendly, right? That it's its own separate booking platform. Or like we use Appointment Core over here when people are booking. Okay, fine. When somebody books in a third-party tool, okay, we have to apply a tag that says they booked, go ahead and add them to the appointment reminders. If you're using the native built-in appointment booking stuff that comes with your CRM, which most CRMs have this just out of the box, you would simply want to use the native built-in piece. So book natively. We'll say this, right? Again, we're touching our nose, and this is like reaching our hand around and doing this kind of thing. But even in the case where you're using a third party, right? That's still not the best way to do it. In fact, a tag, again, is the worst possible way to do things, and I stand behind this. because depending on how your integration works, you should be able to use the API directly. So if you're using a tool like Zapier to connect Calendly to Keap, cool. Someone books in Calendly, you have to apply a tag in Zapier to now go ahead and trigger the appointment reminder. But if you're using a tool like Make, something that actually lets you make API calls, you can now go ahead and use a third-party booking event, again, a when, that is based on an API. So again, this has a much more stable, this is just much more stable than if you were tagging, okay? So if you're using something like Make, or any other tool that actually lets you make a native call, an API call, use that. It's far more stable. And if you're using something like Zapier, you do not have a choice. You cannot make, at least as of right now, as of this recording, you can't make an arbitrary API call. Okay? So, what about though? Well, before I get to the next part, Justin, am I making sense? Is this clear? Is there anything that I should clarify?
I
And
don't think
pull
so.
any punches. Okay. All right. Because if I'm missing something, let me know. We'll go ahead and talk about it. But let's talk about something like a launch or something like if I have. Well, what's a good use case for just taking a segment of your database and just dumping them into an automation? I'm putting you on the spot, Justin. What's a use case for that? We'll use that as the example.
So getting rid of like a tag, you're basically it's just saying putting a bunch of, all we're trying to do is put a bunch of people into one segment. What would be a good scenario for something like that?
What's like
Okay.
a real world use case?
I mean, as far as I'm aware, all the times we've ever used any kind of like a segment for something is usually to lead someone who's already interested in something that you have to offer, provide, or whatever it might be,
Okay.
into kind of like a its own like workflow. Because I know we've done your basics as far as like you can send out emails, sure, but that's kind of, I guess, cliche.
That's assuming,
Yeah,
well, like
but
a
then
blog post, right? Like,
I mean that's what we've been doing for a lot of other stuff as well. Yeah.
let's use that as a simple example. So blog notification, which I'm gonna spell it right. Blog notification, 2025.09, and then the next blog post, which off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like customer journey planning, something like that, just as an example, right? Okay. So here is the low vibe, smooth brain way to do things, which I get is silly and a little controversial, would be that we build this automation that, sure, here's an email pushing the blog post, and maybe there's another email pushing the blog. In fact, let's use like a real example here. So as soon as somebody gets into this automation, this workflow, whatever, read the blog. And then maybe if they have not clicked through to see the blog post, maybe a week later in the morning, hey, here's a blog reminder, right? So there's already people on our list. They've signed up for our blog notifications. And so we're saying, cool, here's the latest blog that we have. And then just to be fancy about it, we can track that they click to the blog, which actually, this is a good example if I can spell it up. Click to the blog, right? So if they get this first email and they click to the blog before that reminder goes out, they're not going to see the reminder. Okay. This is all that you need. And we're going to talk about reporting in a moment. This is all that you need. You do not need a tag. Even if you're using a tag for blog subscribers, fine, whatever. You do not need a tag to cause this automation to go. You can search in your database and you can say, cool, just put people into here directly. All right. Here's the old school way that is subject to fail. And this is something you'll see a lot, which I am vehemently opposed to. So I'll say like something like start blog notification 2025-09. Someone will actually create a whole tag just to get people into this automation. You do not need that. This is also a one-time use tag. So like at the very least, if you're going to apply a tag, you better remove that tag. Otherwise, you're bloating the database. Okay? And then here's the other thing that you'll see. Rather than using the native built-in function of the tool, you'll have people that make a tag of like, click to 2025.09 blog. So you'll write these emails and literally have a tag applied on each link click that goes to the blog. Do you see how both of these are, and Justin, I'm asking you as the audience that's watching, do you see how this is completely unnecessary? There's no need for any of this at all.
Yes, actually.
But
I mean,
one,
it's just it is very repetitive in its own nature, but not only that, like if there is no need for a tag in general, even if you want to segment someone in like a certain group, that's where your actual like sequence comes in general, because they should already be in that bulk sequence to begin with, and there's no need for a tag because it's already keeping everything and everyone organized for you.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And then you don't need a tag to track that they clicked on the blog because this is built into the system. You can track when people click on stuff. And most CRMs have this. So whether it's a link click goal or like other tools, they'll call it like an action link or whatever, trigger link, whatever. There's reporting based on all of this. And that's really what it comes down to. And that's the argument that I hear a lot of people try to argue. Oh, well, no, we need the reporting on it. We have to tag them because we need to have the reporting. No, patently false. So now we're going to get into the second part of the conversation, which is learning how to, now this is specific to Keap. The concepts are very similar for most CRMs though. The kind of reporting we're going to look at is available in almost every single CRM. Okay. This is the idea that I don't need to apply a tag to see who ended up in this sequence. I can just report on who ended up in the sequence. I don't need a tag to see who clicked to the blog because I can literally just see who clicked to the blog. So we're actually going to go ahead and go through a real example. We're going to go ahead and look at this in the reporting mode. Because with reporting mode, there's, and again, most CRMs are the same, but there's kind of two ways to approach it. And the best analogy that I've come up with is it's like the difference between your speedometer and your odometer. So the speedometer is like right now, in this exact moment, what is happening? Who is in this workflow? Who's active here? Okay? And then the odometer is historical. How many miles have I driven? Historically, how many people have been in this sequence? Historically, how many people did get this email? Historically, how many people did click on this? Okay? So what we're going to do is, because obviously we eat our own dog food. Everything that we talk about that's relevant to our business, we use. There's some like big scale concepts that like we don't use just because it's not a big enough, we're not a big enough business. We don't have like millions of people in our database. And we would do this if we did. So let's look at, I want to use the redefining the customer journey. Season 1. Okay. There's nobody active in here. So again, speedometer wise, nobody's here. Nobody's here at all. Let's go look at this automation. So there's 5 kinds of reporting that exist, again, specifically with Keap. But again, these concepts exist in most CRMs here. In fact, if you look at the Infusionsoft cookbook and you look at, I think it's chapter 8 or 9, chapter 9, your dashboard reporting, it's basically showing like who is in a campaign, who is or was in a specific sequence, who is queued to receive a specific thing within a sequence, who did receive that, and then who actually hit a goal here. Okay, so let's go look at that. And if you want to watch more of the videos from the cookbook, if you go to iscookbook.com, Justin has done a wonderful project where he took all the old videos and put it onto a YouTube channel. So everything that's in the book, pretty much with the exception of a couple of things that just don't exist in the software anymore, they're on YouTube. You can get it for free, and then of course you can still buy the book. I'd still recommend buying the book because the models are timeless, and it also shows the copywriting, which that's, copywriting for automation is vastly different. So let's look at historically. So if we look at the reporting and we look at what's current, okay, there's basically 2 kind of stats. Who is in this sequence right now, which this is season 1 of the podcast. We launched this in Q1 of this year, 12 episodes. Who's currently in here? Okay, maybe we'll look at another example to show people that are in here. And then who is queued? In other words, who made it through the entire sequence and didn't go anywhere else? So if we go look at here, you can see there's this season 2 queue. So there's 1,500 people that started off in episode 1, then went to 2, then went to 3, and so on. And now they're queued. I don't need a tag for this. If I want to report on this, if I want to see who's active anywhere, right, I can just look at who are the active contacts in the entire campaign, the entire automation, or even per sequence. And if I want to see who was here and has just made it to the end and didn't go anywhere, I can look at the queued. Okay? You don't need a tag for this. I saw something earlier this week that kind of grinded my gears. It was originally it was a 25 email nurture, and every single email was its own sequence, which is fine, whatever. But what they did have, in addition to this, they had a tag for every single email being sent. Email number 1 sent. And then when they made it into number 2, they removed email 1 sent, which is good, but then they said, okay, email number 2 is sent. Completely redundant, not necessary, big waste of time. All you have to do is look at the historical data here for this. In fact, we'll go look at my mom's newsletter in a moment to show you this whole active contacts thing, right? And why you do not need to have a tag for who's in a sequence. That's silly. And then if we go look, so that's a speedometer. That's like right now in this exact moment what's happening. Right now, in this exact moment what's happening in this automation is nothing. 1,500 people went through this in quarter 1. When we do season 2, we're going to take everybody in this queue, put them into the season 2 campaign. Okay? So now let's go look at historically. So out of the box, there's like, last 24 day, month, this kind of stuff. So there shouldn't be anybody with any of these here. Okay, maybe this is kind of a bad example here. Let's go look at, well, no, we'll keep this here for the goals. Okay, we're going to go look and see. Go ahead and show me historically in the last year. Who was here? Or there's an error getting the reporting information. That's fantastic. You never know what's going to happen live, right? Well, let's not look at that. Let's look at a different. Let's look at a different item. Let's go to my mom's automation. Let's look at that. But I guess before we do that, let's look at these concepts. So this idea of a workflow. Who was in this workflow? Who received this particular email? Okay. And then who hit this specific goal? Let's go back, if it'll let me go back. Who actually clicked to this episode, right? So there's the like, and again, you could have a tag for this. No need. It's a waste of time. You don't need that. Okay? Same thing with sending this email. Who received this email? Just look at the reporting of who received the email. You don't need a tag that they received this email. All right? So here, let's look. You can see this data is trying to load. I guess because it's so long ago, it's not. But like these 23 clicks here, we would see that there should be about 23 people that actually clicked to this. All right, let's go look at my mom's newsletter. Let's have a better real world use case besides our own stuff. All right, where is mom's newsletter? Boom. Okay. So this is going to be a little more easier to understand. So we're going to look at reporting mode. So again, speedometer, odometer. What's going on right now? What historically has happened? And again, these concepts are universal regardless of the CRM. Of course, today we're specifically looking at Keap. So let's look at the reporting. And if we say, cool, currently, like what's going on here, all right? You can see there's people that as they opt into our newsletter, there's people that are here. So one person just opted in recently. A couple people opted in weeks or so ago. Somebody's here. There's a handful of people that are in these articles. So again, breaking it down even further, this is a good example. Where are these people? Okay, because this has, I think, 6 articles in this one sequence. You can see this is how it breaks down. A couple people waiting on this one, a couple people waiting on this one. There you go. If you wanted to see that specifically, you don't have to tag that. That's silly. It's a waste of time and resources. You can just literally use the reporting. Who's waiting at this timer before they get this AIAIO, right? And you could set up safe searches for all of this to show where are people in the process. And then same thing for all of these, like here's all these people that are with these various active contacts, all right? So the way that she's got this set up is basically one article comes out, wait a week, then they're done with the sequence, they go to the next one. And just flow through it. And then at the end of the chain, big chain, okay. Oh, she had a bunch lately. Cool, that's great. There's 79 people here. Bulk of her list is here because these are some of the newest articles. They'll get this, then they'll get this, then they'll get this, then they'll get this. And then at the end of the chain, there'll be people queued up. And the next time she adds an article, guess what? Those people that are queued, they're going to go right into here. Okay. So that's what, again, what's happening right now. Who are these 79 active people? You want to see reporting on it? Do not use a tag. Just make this search, save this particular search. All right. And then if we want to go historically look at things, this is where it looks like the last like 30 days. So you can see, cool, fine. Over the last month, she's added 3 people to her list. Who are those 3 people? What's that report? You would literally just do a report on this particular goal. You don't need a tag for this. It's a bad use of resources. Oh, who received this to keep the lab running smoothly? So there were 2 people in here. And look, we can also see who are the 2 people that got this particular email. All right? You don't need to use tags. All you need to do is understand how to use your tools professionally. Your database is going to run faster. You're going to understand, you know, you're going to be able to pull the data that you need to pull, and you don't have to waste time. So then there's one more concept that I want to roll into as well, because like we talked, there's not really any goals in here. We're not tracking who's clicked on what, right? Sweet. Log me out. That's fantastic. I love this. My favorite part of being live. All right.
There's always
Jeez.
something.
There's always something. Man, let's go to... Hold on, let me get logged back in here real quick. Okay. Here it is. Let's go back to the thing. That's so weird they logged me out. That's bizarre. What if you did want to track a particular event, right? This is where the idea of just putting a note is super relevant. It's a CRM at the end of the day. It's the customer relationship management. What's been going on? Okay. So actually, I'm gonna do one better than this. I don't want to use the sandbox. We're going to use a real life example. If you want to learn how to plan world-class customer journeys the exact same way that we do things over here for our clients, you can go ahead and get free access to our mini course, How to Automate Like a Pro. In less than half an afternoon, you'll be not only given the philosophies and the methodologies of it, you'll also be given the exact same Google Doc templates that we use to plan this stuff out. So this is built using a membership site. There you go, Automate Like a Pro. So this is one of those cases where we do have to use a tag. And I think I might have mentioned, I know I mentioned it earlier when we were talking, pre-production of this episode, Justin. I don't think I talked about it live now. Sometimes you do have to use a tag. Sometimes that is a necessary evil, especially when you're talking about integration stuff, and especially when we're talking about things like membership sites, right? Those are usually driven off of tag stuff. So if somebody has this tag, they can see this course. So you do have to have tags. That's okay. But check this out. There's 4 modules in this. Like I said, half an afternoon. It's just barely over 2 hours worth of content. And if you want this, just go to bepro.events/ALAP, bepro.events/ALAP, Automate Like a Pro, and you can sign up for free. When you complete one of these modules, yes, we do apply a tag that the module is complete. Okay, we have to. There's just no way around it, because then that controls what the user sees in here. But check this out. We also apply a note that they completed this. Now, not only can I do reporting on, hey, how many people got this note in the first place, at any point in time, I can search the database for people that have this exact note. I don't need to use a tag. I am forced to use a tag because I have to have, again, the membership site for this, but check this out. If you are going to use a tag, keep the stuff clean, okay? When Module 2 is complete, we remove Module 1 being complete. And then we go ahead and log that they're here. So at any given point in time, nobody can have more than one single completion tag. And here's the other thing that's a super nuanced thing. Module 4 is the last one, right? So even though this goal says Module 4 complete, the tag itself is that they completed the course. And they have to have this for the, again, the interface inside. We use Customer Hub for a membership site. They have to have this tag to get all the bonuses and see all the stuff here. But then we remove Module 3 complete, and then we log a note that they did complete this. So at the absolute worst, they're going to have the tag that delivers their access in the first place, Automate Like a Pro access. This tag here is triggering another campaign, but we immediately remove that tag as soon as it happens, right? At the absolute worst, they're going to have an access tag and then one of the module completed tags, and that's it. It's a necessary evil. Okay. Looking at things like this, like what if they do a lead ad with Facebook? What if we do a TikTok lead ad? Like, we do have to use a tag because we use Zapier. If we were using Make, we could just use an API call. but we also remove these tags. And I just lied to you. We should be removing these tags. Why are we not removing these tags when people opt in? It's a great question. I guess because I can remove that tag, okay? But the history that they achieve this is still going to be there. I can always search the database for people that have done this. And if anything, this is another good high-level reminder that your automation is never complete. There's always other ways to enhance it and improve it and do things like that. So we originally launched it like this. We do have a dedicated landing page to it. There is also a web form where people can register for the course on our website, right? So we don't need to tag that. Any of these 2 entry points going to work. We added these leads on after the fact. And then I just forgot to remove those tags. And that's okay. That'll be an improvement that we make. Okay. So to sum it up, the last thing in the world you should do is tag. If you can use a native trigger, a native when, a native goal, use that. If you must use a tag because you're forced to use it because of a third-party integration, and that integration doesn't allow you to just call the API directly, fine, use a tag, you should remove it. If you are forced to use tags, like we are with our membership site, at least keep the tags clean. Okay? Apply and remove them automatically as needed. And understand how reporting works. Like, you don't need a history tag and a trigger tag and a status tag, okay? This is your status tag. Who's in this sequence? Who's in this sequence? That's not a tag, that's just a report. Historically, where was somebody? Look at who was in this. You don't need a tag for that, okay? So don't use tags. It's the absolute last thing you should do, and I stand by that. Learn how the native reporting works and segment your database smarter. If you don't have to use a tag and you can use a custom field or even like a native built-in field, use it. And I think that's it. And I can't believe this has been it's been 40-something minutes here, Justin. So,
Yeah.
you know, they can't see you, but they can hear you. What questions, if any, do you have? Or is there something you would like me to clarify or something you think that people watching might be wondering about? I know it's a lot. It's like a fire hose.
It sure is. And I'm ready for as much pressure that's going on in my head. It's just more that's being kind of compiled all together.
Yeah,
so yeah,
right.
it's a little
we'll
bit.
let you off the hook. Yeah, you're not
but
feeling awesome today, so.
Yeah,
okay.
Other than that, I think the basic grasp, what I'm grasping out of all of these little things, that it is a lot to like kind of it's a lot to compile at once, but I think once you like break it down, it's basically just saying, do you need to label anything in particular? Really think about that. If the answer is no, and you only need people, or by people, any like clients or whatever customers that you have in your database, you can easily just start them off in your like we said before, just start them off in your normal sequence.
Mhm.
Everyone's going to flow through the same pattern anyways. And unless there's another random chain of events, it's just like, all right, well, if someone does sequence like X, then they may want to be tagged for this specific thing. But even then, that's not necessary because you could just add another sequence and they can flow into that if that's the case too.
Exactly.
So like, there's, like you said, I understand that there is a time and place for, well, essentially for everything that you're doing for automation. Everything's not necessary to do, but it can also play the reverse role at the same time, depending on what it is you're doing and how specific do you need to be.
Mm-hmm. You got it. And yeah, and when it comes to specificity, the tag should be your absolute last ditch attempt. Don't use it as a crutch. There's better, more native, more stable ways to use the system you already have. So go ahead and do that. So I think that's a really good place to stop for today, especially because it's Friday. So just as
Yeah.
a friendly reminder, y'all, we do these on, at least as of right now, on the second and the fourth Thursday of every month at it's 4 p.m. Pacific. We push it up to Friday because I was at my buddy's wedding yesterday, and so I wasn't here. But that means that the next one of these is going to be on Thursday, September 25th. So throw it in your calendar. And if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. And if you're going to do anything, you might as well be pro. So have an excellent day, everybody, and we will see you